The little girl came out of nowhere. 1 second the lobby was empty, just marble floors, fluorescent quiet, and Zara Williams pushing her mop cart toward the east corridor at 11:43 at night. The next second the side door crashed open, and a child hit the floor. Her knees first, then palms, like whatever strength had been carrying her had simply given out the moment she crossed the threshold. She was soaking wet, white school uniform torn at the shoulder, dark hair plastered across her face. For one terrible second she didn't move at all. Zara dropped the mop handle and crossed the lobby at a run. She gently approached the girl and carefully turned her over, her hands still steady, even though she no longer worked as a nurse. The child's eyes slowly opened, a small face, perhaps 8 years old, with a fresh cut above her brow. Her lips were pale, a sign of the cold, fear, and whatever she had been through. Her hand shot up and grabbed Zara's wrist. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. "Please, don't let them take me." Zara looked at the door the girl had come through. Through the rain-streaked glass she could see the street. Wet pavement, headlights, and a black SUV that had not been there 20 minutes ago. Sitting at the curb with its engine running and its lights off. Waiting. Zara looked back at the child gripping her wrist, like she was the last solid thing in the world. Every sensible thought she had said the same thing. Call security, step back, stay out of it. She had come to Seoul to disappear, not to get pulled into whatever this was. She had rules she had built specifically to protect the quiet life she was holding together with both hands. She picked the girl up off the floor. "I've got you," Zara said. "You hear me? I've got you." She carried her behind the security desk. The overnight guard was on his bathroom rotation, she knew his schedule by now, and set her down in the chair crouching in front of her. The girl was still shaking, her small fingers locked in the front of Zara's work jacket like she was afraid that letting go meant disappearing. "What's your name?" Zara asked, keeping her voice low and even. "Ji-woo," the girl breathed. "Okay, Ji-woo, I'm Zara." She pulled the first aid kit from under the desk. She had put it there herself 2 months ago because the building's official kit was 3 floors up and useless in an emergency, and cracked it open. "I'm going to clean that cut. I need you to stay very still and tell me what happened." Ji-woo told her in pieces, the way frightened children tell things. Out of order, circling back, stopping when the words got too close to something she couldn't look at directly. She had been coming back from her tutors. Her driver hadn't shown up. She had waited 30 minutes before she started walking. The black car had been following her for 2 blocks before she ran. Zara cleaned the cut above her eyebrow with antiseptic, applied a small bandage, and said nothing while Ji-woo talked. But her eyes kept going back to the door. The SUV hadn't moved. "Where do you live?" Zara asked. "Here," Ji-woo said. 32nd floor. Zara went still for just a moment. In 14 months of working this building, she had cleaned every floor except 32. The elevator didn't go there without a keycard she didn't have. She had assumed it was a corporate suite. Empty, owned by someone who was never here. "Is your father home?" Zara asked carefully. Something shifted in Ji-woo's face. Fear, but a different kind. Older, more complicated. "He's going to be angry," she said quietly. "I wasn't supposed to be outside alone." "That's okay, that's not your problem right now." Zara looked at the SUV one more time. Then she made a decision she would spend the next several weeks trying to understand. But before we continue, kindly hit the subscribe button and tell us where you are watching from. Zara closed the first aid kit, stood up, and held out her hand. "Come on, I'll take you up." Ji-woo looked at her hand, then at her face. Then she took it. They crossed the lobby together. Zara used her pass key on the elevator panel. It got her as far as 31. But Ji-woo reached past her and pressed a code into the secondary pad below the buttons. 7 digits. Punching them in from memory with the casual fluency of a child who had grown up knowing access codes the way other children knew their home address. The elevator moved. Zara noticed 3 things on the ride up. Ji-woo had stopped shaking. Ji-woo was studying her face with the focused, unblinking attention of a child who had learned early to read adults carefully. And Ji-woo was still holding her hand. The elevator opened. The 32nd floor was not a corporate suite. It was enormous, a private residence that took up the entire level, floor-to-ceiling windows, wrapping the Seoul skyline on 3 sides, city lights smearing gold and white through the rain. The furniture was dark and expensive and minimal, the kind of minimal that wasn't about taste but about control, about wanting every surface clear. There were no photographs on the walls, no personal objects on the side tables, nothing soft anywhere except a single child's drawing taped crookedly to the refrigerator visible through the open kitchen archway. Crayon figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a yellow sun. Zara had about 4 seconds to take all of this in before the men appeared. 3 of them, materializing from different doorways like they had been waiting. Black suits, earpieces, eyes that moved to Jiwoo first, relief, fast and professional. And then to Zara, and went very flat. One of them said something sharp in Korean. Jiwoo stepped in front of Zara, 8 years old, chin held high, her voice suddenly carrying an authority that had no business coming from someone her size. She spoke quickly and firmly in Korean. The man's jaw tightened, and he said something else. Jiwoo shot back a response that made him snap his mouth shut. Then the door at the far end of the room opened. Kwon Min-sik did not walk into a room. He arrived in it, the kind of man whose presence rearranged the air, whose stillness was somehow louder than movement. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms despite the hour, like he had been working. And sleep was something that happened to other people. There was a tattoo curling up the left side of his neck that disappeared under his collar. His face was the kind of handsome that had been hardened into something more severe by years of keeping it very still. His eyes found Jiwoo first. Something moved across his face. Relief, fury, and something raw underneath both. All in the span of 1 second. All locked back down before it could fully surface. Then his eyes moved to Zara. They were cold. Completely, professionally cold. The eyes of a man who looked at everything in terms of what it cost and what it wanted. "Who are you?" His English was precise, accented but deliberate, each word placed like he was used to people listening carefully to whatever he said. "Zara Williams," she said, her voice calm. "I work the night maintenance shift downstairs. Your daughter came through the lobby. There was a car outside following her." She kept her tone steady. She had dealt with intimidating men before, those who wore their danger openly and those who hid it behind expensive suits. Min-suk was neither. He was the type of man who didn't bother hiding anything, because he had decided long ago he didn't need to. She had a cut above her eyebrow. I cleaned it. Silence stretched between them. Min-seok looked at Jiwoo. Jiwoo looked back at him with an expression that was equal parts guilt and defiance. The universal face of a child who knows they did something wrong but is not fully sorry. He crossed the room, crouched in front of her, and checked the bandage above her eyebrow with 2 careful fingers. His voice when he spoke to her in Korean was quiet and controlled, but Zara didn't need to understand the words. She could hear what was underneath them, the particular restraint of a parent who is very frightened and is turning it into something else because frightened is not something they know how to be. Jiwoo answered him, pointed at Zara, and said something that made one of the suited men near the door shift his weight. Min-suk stood, looked at Zara again. He reached into his shirt pocket and produced a card, matte black, no name, just a number, and held it out. "I'll have my assistant contact your employer. You'll be compensated for—" "I don't want money," Zara said. The room went very quiet. Min-suk looked at her with the expression of a man who had not heard that sentence in a long time. Maybe ever. "She was scared and she was bleeding and there was a car following her," Zara said. "I did what any person would do. Keep your card." She turned toward the elevator. "Zara, see." Jiwoo's voice, small, sudden and urgent. Zara stopped and looked back. Jiwoo had crossed the room without anyone noticing and was standing right behind her. Her hand found Zara's again, both of hers wrapping around it the way they had in the lobby, that same desperate grip. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Can you stay? Just for a little while, please." She looked up at Zara with eyes that were both exhausted and too young, carrying something far too heavy for someone her age. "You're the first person who didn't look scared when they picked me up." The room was silent. Zara looked at the little girl's face. Then, slowly, she looked up at Min-suk. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't fully read, guarded and assessing, and, underneath it all, something that looked almost like he was waiting to see what she would do. Like he already knew what most people did and was waiting to be proven right again. Zara looked back at Jiwoo. "Okay," she said quietly. "A little while." Min-suk said nothing. But he didn't tell her to leave, and that, Zara would later understand, was how it started. A little while turned into morning. Zara hadn't planned it this way. She had meant what she said. An hour, maybe less, just until Jiwoo settled, until the grip on her hand loosened and the child's eyes stopped darting to the door, as if expecting something to come through it. That was all. Then she would take the elevator down, clock out 3 hours late and go home, leaving the 32nd floor behind as if it had never been part of her life. But Jiwoo didn't let go. She led Zara to the kitchen with the quiet authority of a child who had decided something and wasn't discussing it, climbed onto a bar stool and looked at her expectantly. "Are you hungry? Mrs. O leaves food in the refrigerator, but I'm not allowed to use the microwave alone." "Who's Mrs. O?" Zara asked. "The housekeeper. She goes home at 8. Jiwoo paused. "Appa doesn't like people sleeping here." Zara glanced toward the hallway where Min-suk had disappeared with 2 of his men 10 minutes ago, voices low. The conversation clearly not finished. She could still feel the weight of his eyes from across the room. that flat, measuring look that didn't give anything away and took everything in. "What does your father do?" Zara asked carefully, opening the refrigerator. Ji-woo was quiet for exactly 1 second too long. "Business," she said. Zara looked at the refrigerator. It was stocked with the kind of precision that suggested someone other than the people who lived here made the decisions about it. Portioned containers, labeled in Korean, arranged by category. She found rice, leftover galbi, some spinach banchan. She pulled them out without asking permission because Ji-woo was looking at her with the specific hunger of a child who had been alone in a big apartment for hours and had eaten nothing since whenever. She heated the food and plated it properly. Not just dumped it, but actually took the time to arrange it neatly because her mother had raised her to believe that how you served food said something about how you saw the person. Ji-woo watched the process with complete fascination, her chin resting in both palms. "Mrs. O just put the container in the microwave," Ji-woo said. Said Zara. "It tastes different when it's on a plate." "Everything does." She set the food in front of Ji-woo, and then started quietly washing the utensils she'd used because she was in someone else's kitchen, and that was how her grandmother had raised her. Ji-woo ate with both hands wrapped around the bowl, properly but without the stiff self-consciousness of a child performing manners. She was just hungry, and trying not to show how much. "You were a nurse," Ji-woo said between bites. Zara looked at her. "What makes you say that?" "The way you cleaned my cut. And the way you carried me." She said it simply, like she was reporting an observation, no drama in it. "Nurses carry people differently than other people." Zara turned back to the sink. "I was, a while ago." "What happened?" Ji-woo asked. "Things," Zara said. Ji-woo accepted this the way perceptive children accept incomplete answers from adults, not because they believe it's the whole truth, but because they understand that pushing won't open a door that isn't ready to open. She went back to her food. Zara finished washing up. She was drying her hands when she felt it. The shift in the room, the particular quality of silence that meant someone had entered it. She turned. Min-sok was standing in the kitchen doorway. He had changed his shirt. This one was black, simpler, and the tattoo on his neck was fully visible now. A design that started at his collarbone and curved upward, something between a dragon and a wave, old ink that had settled deep into the skin. He was looking at Ji-woo, who was finishing her food with focused contentment, apparently unconcerned by her father's appearance. Then he looked at the plate, then at the clean utensils on the drying rack, then at Zara. "She said she was hungry," Zara said, before he could ask. He said nothing. He moved to the refrigerator, opened it, stood in front of it for a moment, looking at what remained, and then, so quietly she almost missed it. He took out one of the labeled containers, put it in the microwave, and set the timer. Zara picked up her jacket from the back of the bar stool. "I'll head out," she said. The car that followed, Ji-woo, Min-seok said, without turning from the microwave. "Black Hyundai, did you get the plate?" Zara paused. "Partial, last 3 digits. I can write it down." He turned then, looked at her with that same measuring stillness. "You thought to memorize it." "I thought someone should." Something shifted almost imperceptibly in his expression. Not warmth, it wasn't warm, but the cold recalibrated slightly, like a calculation that had just produced an unexpected result. "Write it down," he said. She found a notepad on the counter, wrote the partial plate, slid it across to him. He looked at it, folded it once, and put it in his pocket. Ji-woo had finished eating. She slid off the bar stool, carrying her plate to the sink with the careful concentration of a child who had been taught this task, and was still proud of remembering. She then turned and looked between the 2 adults in the kitchen, her face wearing an expression of complete innocence that Zara immediately didn't trust. "Appa," she said, "can Zara come back tomorrow?" The kitchen was very quiet. Min-seok looked at his daughter. Ji-woo looked back at him with those wide, patient eyes. It was, Zara realized, a specific kind of standoff. The kind where both participants knew the outcome already and one of them was just waiting for the other to catch up. "She has a job," Min-seok said. "She could come after," Ji-woo said. "I don't have a tutor on Thursdays." "Ji-woo, you said I could make 1 request per week without negotiation." Ji-woo's voice was perfectly level. "This is my request." Zara pressed her lips together very hard. Min-seok looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then he looked at Zara, that flat, assessing gaze running its calculation again. "We'll discuss it," he said. Ji-woo, clearly understanding that "we'll discuss it" from her father meant yes, but slowly nodded once with enormous dignity and then went to brush her teeth. Zara pulled on her jacket. Min-seok walked her to the elevator. He pressed the call button himself and then stood beside her with his hands at his sides, looking straight ahead. She doesn't do that, he said after a moment. Do what? Zara asked. Ask for people. He paused. His jaw moved slightly, like he was choosing his next words from a limited selection he trusted. She doesn't ask people to come back. Zara looked at the elevator doors. How long has her mother been gone? 2 years, and you work nights? It wasn't a question. He didn't answer it like one either, just a quiet exhale through his nose, almost too small to register. The elevator arrived, Zara stepped in, turned around. Min-sok was still looking at her with that expression she couldn't fully decode, guarded and assessing, and something else she couldn't name. Something that sat underneath all the control like a frequency she could almost hear. She's a good kid, Zara said. The doors began to close. Thursday. Min-sok said, one word, final, like a door opening 1 inch and stopping there. The doors shut. Zara rode down 32 floors in complete silence and stood in the empty lobby for a moment, looking at the marble floor she had been mopping, her cart still exactly where she'd left it. She went back to work. She told herself it was just Thursday, just once, just because the kid had a cut above her eyebrow and eyes too old for her face, and had said, "Don't let them take me," in a voice that no 8-year-old should know how to use. She told herself it wasn't anything more than that. She was wrong before she finished the thought. The men in the black car were gone by morning. Zara knew because she checked. 3 times. Once when she finally left the building at 2 a.m., once when she crossed the street to the bus stop, and once more when the bus pulled away and she turned to look through the rear window at the Gangnam Prestige Tower shrinking behind her in the rain. Gone. But the feeling they had left wasn't. She sat on the empty bus with her damp work jacket in her lap, and her hands folded too tightly in front of her, and tried to think about it clearly the way she used to think about things. Before Chicago, before everything. Laying the facts out one at a time like instruments on a tray. An 8-year-old girl. A school uniform. A cut above the eyebrow from falling on wet pavement. A car that had followed her for 2 blocks without stopping, without approaching, just following, watching, waiting for something. For what? The bus hummed through the wet streets. Seoul at 2 a.m. was a different city. Quieter, stripped down, the neon still running but the crowds gone, just slick pavement and the occasional delivery bike cutting through the dark. Zara pressed her forehead briefly against the cold window. Don't let them take me. Not help me. Not I'm scared. Not call my father. Take me. Like she already knew that was what they were there for. She told herself she wasn't going back. She believed it for exactly 4 days. On the 5th day, her supervisor called her into the small ground floor office that smelled like old coffee, and told her, with an expression that was trying very hard to be neutral, that the building's primary residential account, the 32nd floor, the one that went through a private management company and paid 3 times the standard maintenance fee, had submitted a formal request. Additional cleaning services. Twice weekly, mornings only, assigned specifically to her. Zara sat in the chair across from her supervisor and kept her face very still. You can decline, her supervisor said, in the tone of someone who understood perfectly well that she could not decline. Zara thought about the partial plate number she had memorized. She thought about Ji-woo's hand around her wrist on the lobby floor. She thought about Min-sek in that elevator, jaw tight saying one word, Thursday, like he was rationing something. I'll take it, she said. The 32nd floor in daylight was a different place, still enormous, still minimal, still controlled, still carrying that particular quality of a space that had been arranged to give nothing away. But the morning light came through the floor-to-ceiling windows in long flat sheets that hit the hardwood and made the whole apartment look almost, like somewhere a person actually lived. Ji-woo was already dressed when Zara arrived. Uniform pressed, hair braided, backpack on, sitting at the kitchen counter eating toast with the focused efficiency of someone who had a schedule and kept it. She looked up when Zara came in, and her face did the thing, that immediate, unguarded brightness, before she remembered apparently that she was trying to seem casual about it. You came back, Ji-woo said. I work here now, Zara said, setting down her kit. Ji-woo processed this with visible effort at composure. Oh, she said. Then okay. Then she went back to her toast, and Zara was fairly sure she was hiding a smile in it. Min-sok appeared from the hallway in a dark suit, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Korean. He glanced at Zara. Something passed across his face, not surprised he had arranged this himself, but something more careful than that, an assessment, like he was checking whether a decision he had made was going to hold up in daylight. He looked away first, said something final into the phone and ended the call. He set a key card on the counter in front of Zara without making it a moment. Service elevator is faster, he said. North side, thank you, Zara said. He nodded once, picked up his jacket, kissed Ji-woo on the top of the head in a motion that was quick and precise, practiced clearly daily, clearly the hinge of their morning routine, and walked out. The apartment door closed. Jiwoo watched it for a second, then she looked at Zara. He doesn't tell me things, she said quietly. Zara looked at her. What kind of things? About the men. Jiwoo set her toast down. Her voice had changed. Smaller now, stripped of the morning brightness, something older underneath. I've seen that car before. Not just that night. I've seen it 3 times. Outside school, outside the tutor's building. She paused. I told Appa. He said it was nothing. Zara said nothing. She was very still. It's not nothing, Jiwoo said, not afraid, just certain, the way children are certain about things adults are trying to protect them from knowing. People who are nothing don't follow you. The kitchen was quiet. Zara crouched down until she was level with Jiwoo's face. Has anyone ever tried to approach you, touch you, talk to you when your driver wasn't there? Jiwoo shook her head. They just watch. She looked at Zara with those 2 old eyes. Why do people watch someone before they do something? Because they're planning it. Because they're waiting for the right moment. Because whoever sent them wants to be sure before they move. Zara didn't say any of that. I don't know, she said. Jiwoo looked at her for a long moment, then she picked up her toast again and finished it. The brightness returned to her face as she chattered about her tutor and a girl at school who had said something funny the previous day. Zara started cleaning, responding in the right places, laughing at the right moments. But her hands weren't steady the way they usually were. And that night, 3 floors below in the basement parking structure, she stood beside her bus stop and watched a black Hyundai Ease slowly pass the building, without stopping. Different plate, same car. She wasn't supposed to be in the east corridor of the 32nd floor. She was cleaning the main living area when she heard it. Low voices from behind the study door that Min Seok kept shut, always shut. The one room she had been told without words was not part of her service. She would have kept moving. She was good at not hearing things that weren't meant for her. But then she heard Jiwoo's name. She stopped. The voices were in Korean, fast and tense. 2 men, Min Seok and someone else she didn't recognize. She couldn't understand the words, but she understood the shape of it, the particular rhythm of men discussing something dangerous, something that had a deadline attached to it, something where the options on the table were all bad. Jiwoo's name came up again, and then a word she did know because she had heard it on the news, in the papers, in the conversations of other residents in this building, who talked too loudly in lobbies when they thought maintenance staff couldn't hear. Hashong. She had looked it up once, months ago, after overhearing it the first time. A rival syndicate, old money, old grudges operating out of Busan, the kind of organization that made its points by taking things from people, not money, not territory. Things that couldn't be replaced. People. The study door opened. Zara moved, taking 3 steps back, cleaning cloth in hand, working the baseboard like she had been there the whole time. The man who emerged wasn't Min Seok. He was shorter, sharp-faced, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He saw her. His eyes went flat. A look that had nothing to do with surprise and everything to do with evaluation. He said something in Korean. Zara looked up with the perfectly calibrated blankness she had perfected over 14 months of being the only black woman in rooms where people weren't sure what to do with her. Sorry, I don't speak Korean. He stared at her for 2 more seconds. Then he walked past her toward the elevator. Min Seok appeared in the study doorway. He looked at Zara, at the spot where the other man had been, at Zara again. His jaw was tight in a way that was different from his usual tight. Less controlled, more pressurized, like something underneath it was pushing. How long were you in this corridor, he asked. 2 minutes, Zara said. I can come back to this section later if... It's fine, he said it too quickly, then he stopped, exhaled once through his nose. Looked at her with something that had moved past cold into something raw. You heard? I don't speak Korean, Zara said. You heard the tone. She held his gaze. Yes. The hallway was very quiet. Min Seok looked at the elevator door his associate had disappeared through. Something moved across his face that she had not seen there before, not the controlled fury she had come to recognize, not the measured assessment. Something that looked, for just one exposed second, like fear. The kind that lives beneath every other emotion in a parent. The kind that doesn't have a bottom. He looked back at Zara. Jiwoo can't know, he said, his voice low and precise, each word deliberate. What you heard, what you think you understand. He paused, his jaw tightening. She's 8 years old. She's already lost. He stopped, struggling for control. She doesn't need to carry this. Zara looked at him. She thought about Jiwoo at the kitchen counter this morning, eating her toast, telling her about the car she'd seen 3 times. Already carrying it, already knowing something was wrong and building a wall around herself to hold it. She thought about saying that. She didn't. Okay, she said quietly. Min Seok looked at her for a moment longer. That look she still couldn't entirely read, the one that seemed to be trying to determine whether she was something that could be trusted or something that was going to become a problem. Then he went back into the study and closed the door. Zara stood in the corridor alone. Hashong, a rival organization that took things that couldn't be replaced. An 8-year-old girl, who had been followed 3 times and didn't know why. A father who was afraid and turning it into control because control was the only language he had. Zara went back to cleaning. But from that day she started paying attention differently. The guard rotation at the elevator, the cameras in the lobby. The times Ji-woo's driver was 5 minutes late. The second black car she had now seen twice. Different plates, same slow crawl past the building. She told herself she was just being careful. She told herself this was not her fight. She was still telling herself that when Min-sok appeared in the doorway of the kitchen 3 days later, while she was teaching Ji-woo how to season properly, and Ji-woo looked up and said, completely naturally, completely without thinking, "Appa, come taste this. Zara says you can tell everything about a cook from how they season." And Min-sok looked at his daughter's face, bright and easy in a way it hadn't been in 2 years, and sat down. He tasted it. He said nothing about the food. But he stayed at that table for 40 minutes. And when Ji-woo pulled out her homework and spread it between them, asking Zara questions about fractions, he leaned over once to correct a calculation with the quiet, automatic ease of a father who helped with homework every night. Even though Zara was fairly certain he hadn't been home for homework in weeks, the threat outside the building didn't disappear. But inside that kitchen, for 40 minutes, something else existed. Zara washed the dishes and didn't say a word about it. Neither did he. The threat outside the building didn't disappear. It got closer. Zara noticed it first on a Thursday morning. A different car this time. Not the black Hyundai she had memorized, but a silver Kia parked on the opposite side of the street at an angle that gave it a clean sightline to the building's main entrance. It had been there when she arrived at 7. It was still there when she looked again at 9:30. By 11 it was gone, but the space it had left felt wrong in the way empty spaces feel wrong when something has been watching from them. She didn't say anything to Ji-woo. She texted Min-sok. Silver Kia, partial plate, north side of the street, 2 hours minimum. His reply came in 90 seconds. Seen it. Don't bring Ji-woo to the lobby today. That was all. She put her phone away and returned to the kitchen, where Ji-woo was working on her homework with the same focused intensity she applied to everything. Zara prepared lunch, keeping her voice calm and her movements effortless, while glancing out the window above the sink, careful not to let on that she was watching the street. Ji-woo looked up from her worksheet. You keep looking outside. I like the view, Zara said. Ji-woo looked at her with those clear surgical eyes. You didn't look at the view yesterday. Zara set a plate in front of her. Eat. Ji-woo ate. But she looked at the window once before she picked up her pencil again. And the look was not a child's look. It was the look of someone doing an assessment, filing a result, deciding what to do with it. Zara watched her do it and felt something tighten in her chest. This child was going to know everything whether anyone told her or not. The only question was whether she found out with someone beside her or alone. Min-seok came home that evening earlier than usual. Zara was in the hallway gathering her things when she heard the elevator. She had learned to identify it by now, the specific weight of his arrival, the particular quality the apartment took on when he crossed the threshold. She came around the corner and nearly walked into him. They both stopped. He was in his full suit, tie still on, which meant he had come straight from something that required the armor of it. There was a tension in his jaw that he was managing but not fully containing. His eyes went past her automatically, checking the apartment, checking the rooms, the corners, the windows. Before they came back to her. Ji-woo? He asked. Her room, homework, Zara replied, holding his gaze. The car came back, different plate, same position. His jaw tightened even more as he stepped past her toward the window. He positioned himself at the edge, not directly in front but to the side, the instinct of a man trained to stay out of sight from the street. He peered down at the road below. They're not trying to hide anymore, Zara said quietly. No. He kept looking at the street. They want me to know there, it's a pressure tactic. It's working, Zara said. On Ji-woo, she notices everything, Min-sok. You know that. She's been watching me watch the window all day, and she hasn't said a word about it. That means she already knows. Something's wrong. And she's keeping it to herself. He turned from the window. Looked at her with an expression that was controlled on the surface and something much more pressurized underneath. What would you have me do, he said. Not a question. Almost a challenge, but not hostile. More like a man who has been asking himself the same thing in a locked room and is exhausted by not having an answer. Talk to her, Zara said. Not about the threat. About her. About whether she's okay. She needs to hear your voice saying something that isn't logistics. He looked at her for a long moment. Then Ji-woo's bedroom door opened, and she appeared in the hallway with her worksheet in one hand, pencil in the other, and stopped when she saw her father. That brightness again, immediate, unguarded, the one she couldn't control, before she pulled it back into composure. "Appa," she said carefully. "You're home early." "I am," he said. He looked at her, the way Zara had been watching him learn to do, letting himself see her instead of managing her. "Are you hungry?" Ji-woo blinked. "Mrs. O left food." "I know." He moved to the kitchen. "Come sit." Ji-woo glanced at Zara, who subtly nodded toward the kitchen. Without a word, Ji-woo walked off in that direction. Zara picked up her bag. She was at the elevator when she heard it. Min Seok's voice from the kitchen, low and even, saying something in Korean, and then Ji-woo's voice answering, and then a pause, and then Min Seok again, and whatever he said made Ji-woo laugh. Short, surprised, real, the laugh of a child who had just been caught off guard by her own father. Zara pressed the elevator button. She paused for a moment, her hand gripping the strap of her bag, eyes focused on the elevator doors. The feeling inside her chest was like warmth, still waiting for an outlet. The doors slid open and she stepped inside. She was 2 blocks away from the building when the call came. An unknown number flashed on the screen. She nearly let it ring out. But after 3 weeks on the 32nd floor, she'd learned that unknown numbers in Seoul at 7 in the evening were rarely harmless. There was silence on the line followed by breathing, then a voice. Low, male, with a Korean accented English measured and unhurried. "The janitor," the voice said, "the one who walks the little girl home." Zara came to a halt, the Seoul evening continuing around her. Pedestrians, a food cart, 2 teenagers engrossed in their phones, all unaware of her stillness. "Who is this?" she said. "Someone who has the information you're after." A pause. "We know you're not family, not security. You're a maintenance worker, from Chicago with no connections, no protection." Another pause, letting the weight of it settle. "You need to understand what that means. In this situation, for someone like you." Her heart was hitting her sternum but her voice, "Nothing from you," the voice said. "This is just a courtesy, a warning. Walk away from that building. Walk away from that family. Whatever he's paying you, whatever she's making you feel, it's not worth what's coming." The voice lowered, a touch colder. "We have no issue with you. But when this moves, and it will soon, anyone near that child becomes a liability, and liabilities." A pause. "Get handled." The line went dead. Zara stood on the pavement with the phone at her ear, and the dial tone running. Around her, Seoul kept moving, the food cart, the teenagers. A bus grinding past, windows lit yellow. Ordinary life, completely unaware of what had just been said to her on a public street 2 blocks from a building where an 8-year-old girl was laughing at something her father had just said in a kitchen. She could walk away. She knew that. The voice on the phone had laid out the facts clearly. She was a maintenance worker with no ties, no protection, and she'd come to this city for exactly that reason, to keep things simple, to stay out of the way, to ask nothing of anyone. She could return to her apartment now, call her supervisor in the morning, request a reassignment, and none of this would be her problem anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Min Seok. She wants to show you something she drew. Are you still nearby?" Zara looked at the message. She thought about Ji-woo on the lobby floor, her hands gripping her wrist. "Don't let them take me." Not a question. Not a plea. A statement directed at the one person in the lobby who had stopped. She typed back, "On my way up." She turned around and walked back to the building. The drawing was new, bigger than the others, done on 2 pieces of paper taped together, covering the full spread of the kitchen counter, when Ji-woo unrolled it with the gravity of an artist presenting a major work. It was the coast. Ji-woo had never been there. Zara had mentioned it once, casually, saying she wanted to see the Yellow Sea someday. But Ji-woo had envisioned it clearly, without hesitation. Blue water, white waves, a cliff with a house perched on top, 3 figures standing on the porch. One tall and dark-suited, one tall with big hair, one small, arms spread wide like she was about to jump into the wind. Above it, in Ji-woo's careful block letters, "Someday." Zara looked at it for a long moment. "You put us all there," she said. "That's where we're going," Ji-woo said simply, like it was already decided, like the drawing wasn't a wish but a plan. Zara glanced up from the drawing. Min Seok stood across the counter watching her study it. His jacket was off, tie loosened, the version of him that emerged once the armor came down. He watched her with that look she still couldn't quite name, the one that went beyond mere assessment, the one that had been growing slowly, and now it was something she could feel even from across the kitchen counter. He looked at the drawing, then at her. "Someday," he said quietly, neither agreeing nor dismissing. It hung somewhere between a question and a promise, the word holding space as if it were waiting to be filled. Zara looked at Ji-woo. who was watching them both with enormous innocent eyes that were not innocent at all. Someday, Zara said. She didn't tell Min-suk about the phone call that night. She told him the next morning, early before Ji-woo was up, in the corridor outside the kitchen. She gave him the full account, the voice, the words, the specific phrasing, the number. She watched his face while she talked. He went very still in the way he went still when something was serious. The stillness that was not calm but the opposite of it. Everything moving fast on the inside and nothing showing on the outside. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. You came back, he said. Yes. After they told you to walk away. Yes. He looked at her. Something moved in his face that he didn't try to cover. Why? Zara thought about Ji-woo's drawing. The three figures on the cliffs. Someday in block letters above them. A child who had decided something was real before the adults had caught up to it. Because Ji-woo drew me in, she said, and I'm not the kind of person who lets a child draw them in and then disappears. The corridor was silent. Min-suk watched her for a long moment, his gaze unshielded, carrying the full weight of it. Then, for the first time, he did something she hadn't seen him do. He exhaled slowly, reached out, and placed a hand gently on her shoulder, not gripping, not pulling, just a simple touch. A hand that spoke volumes, more than words could express. Then his phone went off. He looked at the screen and the moment sealed back over, the weight of everything outside coming back in, and he moved toward the study. Stay close today, he said, not looking at her. Don't take the lobby route. Use the service elevator. He paused. And Zara, I know, she said. He glanced back at her, something quick and certain, in his eyes, then he was gone. The first sign that something was wrong came one morning. Ji-woo's driver didn't show up. Zara checked the time, 7:52. The car was always there by 7:40. She went to the window and looked down at the street. No car. She called the driver's number. It rang out. She called again. Nothing. She texted Min-suk. Driver is late, not answering his phone. His reply came in under a minute. Don't let Ji-woo leave the floor. I'm on my way. That was all. No explanation. No, it's probably nothing. Just that. Sharp, final. The message of a man who already knew something she didn't. Zara put her phone in her pocket and walked to Ji-woo's room. The girl was dressed and ready, school bag on, sitting on the edge of her bed reading. She looked up when Zara appeared in the doorway. Is the car here? She asked. Running a little late, Zara said easily. Come eat something while you wait. Ji-woo gazed at her, that steady, measured look, calm yet attentive, reading each word for what it truly meant. Okay, she said. She followed Zara into the kitchen and took a seat at the counter. She didn't ask about the car again, which meant she had already realized it wasn't late. Something else was going on. And, as she always did, she chose to be calm about it because being calm was her way of helping. Zara made toast, kept her hands steady, kept her expression neutral. Inside, her mind replayed the voice from the phone call 3 nights ago saying, when this moves, and it will move soon. Min-suk arrived 18 minutes later. He came through the front door fast, 2 of his men behind him, and the energy he brought in with him was different from anything Zara had seen before. Not controlled urgency, something raw, something that had cracked through the control slightly. He looked at Ji-woo first. His shoulders dropped half an inch when he saw her sitting safely at the counter with toast in her hand. Then he looked at Zara. My head of security didn't come in this morning, he said, low even. Park Jun-ho, his apartment is empty, his phone is off, his accounts were accessed at 4 a.m. The kitchen was very quiet. Zara understood immediately. She could see it laid out clearly, every implication, every consequence, falling into place like dominoes. Park Jun-ho, the man in charge of the guard rotations, the one always positioned closest to Min-suk in every meeting, the man who had Ji-woo's schedule memorized to the minute, knew every camera blind spot, the driver's route, the codes. He knew everything. He gave them everything, Zara said. Min-seok's jaw tightened. Yes. Ji-woo had gone very still at the counter. She wasn't pretending to eat anymore. She was sitting with her toast in her hand, looking at her father with an expression that was too old for her face. Park Jun-ho, she said quietly. I knew something was wrong with him. Both adults looked at her. He stopped looking at me last week, she said. He used to check the room and I was always part of what he checked. Then he stopped. She set the toast down. People stop looking at you when they've already decided something about you. The kitchen was completely silent. Min-seok looked at his daughter, this 8-year-old girl who had just said out loud what his entire security team had missed, and something crossed his face that he couldn't hide. Something between devastation and awe. He crossed the kitchen and crouched in front of her. He spoke to her in Korean, calm and straightforward. No attempts to soften his words, no managing the conversation. Just honesty, father to daughter, the talk Zara had been hoping for. She couldn't understand the words, but she grasped the intent. Ji-woo listened, gently touching his face with one small hand, like a child offering reassurance, silently telling him everything was okay. Min-sik stood, cleared his throat, and looked at Zara. I need her away from the windows, he said. And I need you to stay with her. I'm not going anywhere, Zara said. The next 3 hours were the longest of Zara's life. She and Ji-woo stayed in the inner hallway. No windows, no view from outside. Ji-woo worked on her homework on the floor, leaning against the wall, calm and focused, her way of dealing with fear by keeping her hands busy. Zara sat across from her, answering the questions Ji-woo asked, keeping an eye on the apartment entrance, and listening. Min-sak moved in and out. Phone calls, fast conversations with his men, door codes changed twice. He looked at Zara every time he passed, a quick glance checking. She looked back steadily each time. She was here, she wasn't moving. At 11:30, one of his men appeared in the hallway and said something in Korean. Min-seok's face changed. He turned to Zara. There's been an incident, he said carefully. At Ji-woo's old school, the one she attended before. He stopped. His voice dropped. A child was taken, same age as Ji-woo, same uniform. Zara stared at him. They had the wrong information, he said. Junho gave them old records. They went to the wrong school. He paused. They took the wrong child. The hallway was absolutely silent. Zara heard Ji-woo's pencil stop moving. An innocent girl. Somewhere in this city right now. Taken because she was the right size and the right age, and she had been standing in the wrong place when men with bad information came looking for someone else. A child who had nothing to do with any of this. No syndicate. No mafia war. No rival organization. Just a little girl going to school on a Tuesday morning. Find her, Zara said. Her voice came out harder than she intended. We're already... Min-seok. She held his eyes. Find her tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. He looked at her for 1 second. Something moved in his face. Not offense, not authority. He heard her. Tonight, he said. He turned to his men and spoke fast. The apartment shifted into a different gear. Phones, earpieces, doors. Within 4 minutes, half the men were gone. The waiting was the hardest part. At some point in the early afternoon, Ji-woo drifted off against Zara's shoulder, sinking into a deep sleep. The kind that comes after a morning of held-back fear finally letting go. Zara didn't move. She sat with her back against the wall, Ji-woo's weight pressing against her side, watching the apartment, lost in thought. She thought about the voice on the phone. Anyone near that child becomes a liability. She thought about the drawing on Ji-woo's wall. 3 figures on a cliff. Someday, she thought about the fact that she was sitting on the floor of a mafia boss's apartment in Seoul with his daughter asleep on her shoulder, and 2 weeks ago she had been mopping a lobby at midnight and thinking about nothing except getting home to her leftover rice. She thought about how fast a life could pivot, how one door, one rainy night, one child falling through it could rearrange everything. She didn't regret it. That was the thing that surprised her most. Sitting there in the quiet. She went looking for regret and couldn't find it. Not even the edge of it. Min-seok's message came at 2:17 in the morning. One word, found. Zara read it and closed her eyes for a moment. Ji-woo had moved to the couch by then, properly asleep under a blanket, face slack and young. Zara sat in the armchair across from her and looked at that one word on her screen for a long time. Then a second message. She's safe. Unharmed. She's home. Then a third after a pause. Coming back now. Zara typed back 2 words before she could think too hard about them. We're here. She put the phone down and looked at Ji-woo sleeping, and felt something in her chest settle. Not fully, not completely, because she understood enough now to know that tonight was not the end of it. But the girl who had been taken was home. And Ji-woo was safe, and Min-seok was coming back. For right now that was enough. He came through the door at 3:40. She heard him before she saw him. The elevator, the door, the shift in the air. He appeared in the living room doorway and stood there for a moment taking in the scene. Ji-woo on the couch. Zara in the armchair. The apartment quiet and intact. He looked worn out in a way that his usual control couldn't hide. His jacket was gone, his shirt dark at the collar, the kind of tired that sank deep into his bones. His right hand had 2 bloodied knuckles. She didn't ask about them. He crossed the room and checked Ji-woo the way he always did, quietly without touching her, just looking at her face and her breathing and confirming for himself what his eyes needed to confirm. Then he straightened and looked at Zara. You should go home and sleep, he said. I'm fine here, she said. He looked at her for a moment, too tired to argue. Too tired to be anything other than honest. He sat down on the other end of the couch, not close, just near, and put his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands for a moment, just a moment. Then he straightened back up. The girl, Zara said. What happened to her? She's home, she's not hurt. He paused. And her family, Zara asked. Don't know the full story. They were told it was a misunderstanding. He looked at his hands. It wasn't. I know. He looked at her sideways. You're not going to tell me to get out of this life, he said. Everyone else does. I'm not everyone else, Zara said simply. He looked at her for a long time. The apartment was quiet. Soul outside the windows was doing its 4 a.m. thing, that specific city silence that wasn't really silence, just the world breathing between its louder moments. Haesheng knows they took the wrong child, he said. By morning they'll regroup. They'll move faster next time and more carefully. He exhaled. I need to move Ji-woo. Get her out of the city. I have a place on the coast, not connected to me on any record. She'll be safe there. When? Zara asked. Day after tomorrow. He paused. I want you to come with her. The room was quiet. Not as staff, he said carefully. Not as maintenance, just... He paused, searching for the right word. As her person. The one she trusts. The one who... He stopped again, something shifting in his expression. She stopped having nightmares, he said. Since you started coming. 3 weeks and they went from 4 nights a week to almost none. He met Zara's gaze directly. I don't know what you did. I don't know how you did it. But I'm not moving her anywhere without the thing that made that happen. Zara looked at Ji-woo sleeping on the couch. The face of a child who had been carrying too much for too long and had finally, slowly started to put some of it down. Okay, Zara said. I'll come. Minsak nodded once. Looked at the city outside the window, something in his jaw released slightly, barely visible, but she had learned to read him in fractions. Thank you, he said, low, real. Stop thanking me, Zara said. He looked at her. People who are just doing their job say thank you, she said. I'm not just doing my job anymore and we both know it. The room went very still. Minsak looked at her with an expression she had seen building for weeks, finally arriving at something she could fully understand. Not cold, not calculated, not guarded, just open. The face of a man standing in a room with no armor, perhaps for the first time in years, and realizing the person across from him was still there. He didn't say anything, but he didn't look away, either. And that, Zara was learning, was how Min Seok said the things he didn't yet have words for. The coast house was white and wind-battered, sitting right on the edge of a cliff above the yellow sea. Ji-woo stepped onto the porch the first morning and simply stood there, arms at her sides, face turned toward the wind. Below them the sea stretched out, gray-green, roaring, endless, reaching all the way to the horizon without interruption. Then she spread her arms wide and laughed. Not her careful laugh, not the polite, composed version she used inside the apartment when she remembered to manage herself. This was a real one, loud and surprised and coming from somewhere deep, the laugh of a child who has been held carefully for so long that wide-open space feels like the first breath after a long time underwater. Minseok was standing in the doorway behind Zara. She heard him go very still. She used to laugh like that, he said quietly, so quiet she almost missed it. Before, a long time ago, Zara watched Ji-woo spin in the wind, arms out, hair flying everywhere. She's still her, Zara said. She never stopped being her. She just needed room. He didn't say anything, but she could feel him beside her. The specific weight of a man watching something he thought he had lost walk back into the room. The coast house had 3 bedrooms. Ji-woo picked hers immediately. The one with the biggest window facing the sea so she could watch the waves from her bed. She arranged her coloring pencils on the desk by the window with great seriousness and then appeared in the kitchen doorway and looked at Zara. I want to learn the next step of the jollof, she announced. Hello to you too, Zara said. Hello. Ji-woo came in and climbed onto the counter stool. Can we start? Min Seok appeared behind her, 2 coffee mugs in his hands, and set one in front of Zara without being asked. She looked at the mug, then at him. He had learned how she took it, no sugar, just a little milk, somewhere along the way without making it a moment. She hadn't noticed when it started. It had just become true. Thank you, she said. You told me to stop thanking you, he said. That's different, she said. That's coffee. Ji-woo looked between them with the expression of someone watching a match she had already decided the winner of. They made jollof rice. All 3 of them. Ji-woo on the stool, Zara at the stove, Min Seok leaning against the counter with his coffee and his sleeves rolled up, being handed tasks with increasing confidence by his 8-year-old daughter. Stir this, taste that. No appa, more to the left. He did everything she told him, without argument, without his usual authority. Zara kept her back to them for most of it so neither of them could see her face. 3 days into the coast house, the nightmares came back. Not Ji-woo's, Min Seok's. Zara didn't know about them at first. She heard him on the second night. A sound from down the hall at 2 a.m, movement, a door. She lay in her room, listening as he walked to the kitchen. She heard the water running, then the quiet of him standing at the window. She had come to recognize the stillness of that, the way he stood there just waiting. She got up. He was at the kitchen window with a glass of water, looking at the sea in the dark. He heard her come in and turn slightly. He didn't look embarrassed, just tired. I wake up in it sometimes, he said, no preamble. My wife's accident, the night they called me. He paused. In the dream I always answer the phone faster, I always get there in time. He looked at the water. I never do. Zara sat at the counter. She didn't say I'm sorry, she didn't say it gets easier. She had learned that he didn't need managing. He needed someone to just be in the room. How long, she asked. 2 years, he said. Some months are better. And Ji-woo? She asked carefully. Does she know you have them? He shook his head. She'd want to know, Zara said. Not the details, just that you carry something too, that it's not only her. He looked at her. She thinks she has to be strong for you, Zara said. She's 8 years old and she's managing her grief so you don't have to see it, because you manage yours so she doesn't have to see it. She held his gaze. You're both protecting each other so hard that neither of you is letting the other one actually help. The kitchen was very quiet. The sea moved outside, loud and continuous, indifferent to everything. Min Seok looked at the window for a long time, then he set the glass down and turned to face her properly. He looked at her the way he had been looking at her more and more lately, without the layers, without the distance, just directly, the way you look at someone you have stopped pretending about. I don't know how to do this, he said, simple, honest. Any of this, that being a person outside of what I built. He paused. Ji-woo is the only thing I've done right in 2 years, and I almost lost her, because I was so focused on protecting her from the outside that I stopped showing up on the inside. You're showing up now, Zara said. Because of you, she looked at him. No, because you chose to, I just gave you somewhere. To put it down for a minute. He shook his head slightly. You did more than that. He was quiet for a moment. You walked back into this building after someone called you and told you to leave. You sat on a hallway floor with my daughter for hours and didn't flinch. You looked at this life, everything it is, everything it costs, and you stayed. His voice had dropped. Nobody stays, Zara. People leave this world or get forced out of it. Nobody chooses it. I didn't choose the world, she said quietly. I chose Ji-woo. And I chose you. The silence that followed was so complete she could hear the waves below the cliff. Min Se crossed the kitchen. He stopped in front of her, close, closer than the careful managed distances he had kept for weeks. She could see everything in his face from here. All of it. The exhaustion and the grief and the thing underneath both of them that had been building since a rainy lobby and a child on a marble floor. He reached up and put his hand against the side of her face. Gentle, careful. The hands of a man who handled dangerous things all day and was suddenly terrified of being rough with something that mattered. I don't want you to be here because of Ji-woo, he said, low. I want you to be here because of this, because of us, whatever this is. He searched her face. Is there an us? Zara looked at him. She thought about Chicago, the hospital doors, the one-way ticket, the mop cart, the quiet small life she had built to protect herself from wanting things. She thought about how exhausting it was, protecting yourself from wanting things. Yes, she said, there's an us. Something moved through him, she felt it, a release like a building settling after a long time of holding itself too tight. He pressed his forehead down against hers, and they stood like that in the kitchen at 2 a.m. with the sea outside, and the house quiet around them. I'm going to need you to be patient with me, he said. I'm not good at this. I know, she said, I'm not either. We'll figure it out. Yes, she said, we will. Ji-woo found out on a Sunday morning. She came into the kitchen and found her father cooking eggs, because Zara had spent 3 days teaching him, and he was now deeply, personally invested in no longer having sad eggs. She stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. Her father and Zara at the counter, each with a cup of coffee. The kitchen was warm, filled with the sound of butter sizzling, and the radio Ji-woo had found in the cupboard, now playing old Korean pop songs. Ji-woo watched it all, taking it in. Then she looked at the way her father glanced over at Zara when he thought she wasn't looking, and the way Zara smiled at her coffee when he did. Ji-woo sat down at the counter. She pulled the orange juice toward her. She poured herself a glass with great calm. Finally, she said. Min Seok turned from the stove. What? I've been waiting, Ji-woo said patiently, for a very long time. Ji-woo, weeks, Appa. She took a sip of juice. Weeks. Zara put her coffee mug down in front of her face. Her shoulders were shaking. The eggs are burning, Ji-woo said. Min Seok turned back. He fixed the eggs, he plated them, properly, the way Zara had taught him, because he was a man who once he decided to do something did it correctly. He set a plate in front of Ji-woo, and one in front of Zara and sat down with his own. Ji-woo tasted hers. She looked at the plate, then at her father. "These are not sad," she said, surprised, impressed. "No," Min Seok said, "they're not." Ji-woo looked at Zara. Zara looked back at her. "She's staying," Ji-woo said. "Not a question." "If you want me to," Zara said. Ji-woo picked up her fork. "I drew us on that cliff 8 days ago," she said. "I've been waiting for everyone else to catch up." She ate her eggs. Min Seok looked at Zara across the table. Zara looked back. The morning light streamed through the coast house windows, white and fresh, spilling across the table with the plates, orange juice and Ji-woo eating, her hands wrapped around her fork the way she always did when she was content. Outside, the sea continued its endless motion. Inside, something that had been broken for a long time was sitting at a kitchen table eating eggs. The Haechong situation ended on the 19th day. Zara didn't ask for details. Min Seok came back to the coast house that evening and sat beside her on the porch steps while Ji-woo drew inside, and he said 2 words. "It's done." She looked at him. His face was settled, not happy, something quieter than happy. The face of a man who has finished something heavy and set it down and is only now beginning to feel the absence of the weight. "And after?" she asked. He looked at the sea. The sun was going down, turning the water deep red and orange. "I've been building something on the legitimate side for 3 years," he said. "It's ready. The syndicate will restructure. It won't happen overnight." He paused. "But Ji-woo will grow up without looking over her shoulder. That's what it was always for." Zara nodded. They sat in the quiet for a while. "Zara." He said her name the way he had learned to say it. "Yes, stay," he said. "Not for a while, not until this is over." He turned and looked at her directly. "Permanently, as her mother, as mine." He held her gaze. "I know what I'm asking. I know what this life looks like even when it's better. I'm not going to pretend it's simple." "No," she said, "it's not simple. But I'm asking anyway." She looked at the sea. She thought about Ji-woo inside drawing her clouds. She thought about the crayon figures on that cliff. Someday in careful block letters, a child who had known before any of the adults what this was going to be. "Ji-woo got a vote," Zara said. "She voted first," Min Seok said. 3 weeks ago. She came to my office and told me I was taking too long." Zara turned to look at him. He was watching her with that open, unguarded face. The one that lived under all the armor. The one she had been watching appear in pieces for weeks and was now just there, just present, just real. She laughed. It came up from somewhere deep and surprised her with its size. A real full laugh, the kind that doesn't ask permission. Min Seok watched her laugh and smiled. A real one, the kind that changed his whole face. "Yes," Zara said when she could breathe. "Okay, yes." He reached over and took her hand, simple, no ceremony, just his hand around hers on the porch steps above the yellow sea, while the sun finished going down, and the water turned dark and beautiful below them. Inside, Ji-woo appeared at the window. She looked out at the two of them on the porch steps. She looked for exactly 3 seconds. Then she went back to her drawing. It was a new one. 3 figures on the porch steps above the sea. One tall, broad-shouldered. One tall, big-haired. Hands connected between them. Above them, in Ji-woo's careful block letters, one word, home.